I remember trying to explain to people what it felt like, what trauma felt like, right? And I would tell people, so it's like a switch goes off in my brain. A switch goes off and suddenly I can't really function, be, think, act, or feel the way I normally feel. It's almost like it's out of my control. And of course I would get really strange looks and people would be like, what are you talking about, Michelle? Are you okay? Do you need to see somebody? And the truth is that people don't really understand what happens after trauma. Sadly, when people don't understand what you're going through, it's very invalidating and it feels awful. It only makes a person wonder, well, is there really something wrong with me? And it just doesn't feel good. So with this video, I wanted to help you to understand the difference between just when your brain is just being, you're just living life, and when your brain is in survival, when you're stuck in survival. There's two different ways that our brain reacts, and it causes different feelings, thoughts, and actions within us. So if anyone is going through this, I'm hoping that this video will provide you the validation that you desperately are seeking. So with that in mind, for those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life coach, and I'm dedicated to helping people to break through subconscious programming so that they can get rid of the junk that was put there by toxic people so they can live as their authentic self. If those are topics that you're interested in, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you're notified of my next video that comes up. Okay, so what's the difference between your brain when it's just being and when it's stuck in survival? Let's first start with when it's just being. And as I'm describing this, think about, reflect on your life and think about if there was ever a time where you experienced this, okay? So this is your brain just being. When our brain is relaxed and it's just being, just living, we feel open to learning new information. It's easy to retain the information we learn in the sense that it's not in one ear and out the other. We also can recognize that there may be other interpretations or perceptions that are different than the way we see things, and that's okay. We're completely comfortable if someone else has a different perspective on something. We don't need people to see things exactly how we see them in order to hold on to our reality. Emotionally, when we are in our relaxed brain where we're just being, we have a very relaxed nature. There's a sense of inner peace and grounding, and it shows because we're comfortable in our own skin. We're able to be silly, playful, spontaneous. We're not afraid of making mistakes because we don't feel the need to be perfect in order to feel good enough, safe, and normal. We're not worrying about how others are viewing us or if they're judging us. If we do make mistakes, we don't feel like it's the end of the world because we view mistakes as an opportunity to grow. And one of the most interesting parts of being in our relaxed brain, or when we're just being, is that rather than being hyper vigilant on self, what we're saying, what we're doing, how people are viewing us, rather than focusing on those things, your thoughts are not centered on that. There's a confidence and an ability to be in your own skin so that your thoughts are able to take in your surroundings. You're able to be in the moment. You're able to enjoy other people. You're able to evaluate how you feel around other people because you're not so overly focused on self. There's an inner happiness and contentment and an overall positivity when we are living in relaxed brain. Have any of you experienced that? Let me know in the comment section below. So some of you may never have experienced that. If you were raised by toxic parents and then you wound up in a toxic relationship, you may have never known what that felt like. Others may have been raised by toxic parents, but maybe they did some inner work, some inner healing, and they got to that place where they were in that relaxed brain. But sadly, as adults, they wound up in a relationship that was toxic, that wound up recreating those original wounds, and their brain went back into survival mode. So they tasted what it was like, and then bam, it was taken away from them once again. And now they're once again stuck in survival brain. So here's what survival brain would look and feel like. When your brain is stuck in survival mode, it is hyper-focused on threat to the point that you cannot just be in a social situation. Your brain is constantly scanning for potential danger. So in essence, there's no real estate available in your brain to allow you to simply notice your surroundings in a relaxed and safe kind of way. It's very uncomfortable and outright triggering if someone has a different perspective than you. Let's say you did a good job on something, but a difficult or toxic person at work criticizes it. You suddenly lose the ability to hold on to your perspective if someone else has a different perspective. This is extremely obvious when it comes to your significant other. For example, if you're proud of yourself and your toxic significant other invalidates your success, your joy is suddenly popped like a balloon, completely deflated. You're unable to hold on to your high energy states when there is ambiguity. On an emotional level, you feel unsteady within, on the edge of panic, fearful of doing or saying anything wrong, or fearful of being judged by others. Your focus is hyper vigilant on yourself. It's almost impossible to learn new things. If anything, everything you learn seems to go in one ear and out the other because it seems difficult to retain new information. You strive for perfection due to fear of making a mistake, and you deeply dread being judged negatively. There's no confidence within. You doubt everything, even your own perceptions, your own thoughts, feelings, and reality. It's nearly impossible to make a decision unless someone else validates that that is the correct decision. Okay, how many of you can identify with having that switch go off and your brain be stuck in survival mode? The difficult thing is that as we're healing on our healing journey, while there seems to be a switch that turns survival mode on, and it can be instantaneous, any trigger can suddenly send your brain into that survival mode. Unfortunately, there's no switch that turns it off, unlike the one that turns it on so easily. So what happens is, as you're healing, right, you begin healing your triggers. You begin doing the inner work to heal the things that bring up that response, that emotional response. And so little by little, you wind up swinging from one brain to the other, right? So you find a moment where you're actually in being brain, relaxed brain, but something in your subconscious mind triggers you and suddenly you're in survival mode and you're back in survival brain. That's a difficult pattern to break because survival brain is always more powerful than being brain. And that's because if your brain thinks that your life is in danger, that's always going to trump relaxing and just having a good time in your own skin. So the reason I'm explaining this is so that you understand why, even after you've been even after you remove toxic people from your life, why it seems so hard to get back to that place where you are comfortable and happy just being you. And the reason why, even though people in your life are no longer toxic, you've detoxed from toxic people, even though it still kicks on, is due to trauma. So to understand that, think of your body being in pain, right? So your brain will send your body signals that it's in pain. That's a painful event. But let's imagine that you get that pain taken care of. You heal whatever wound was causing that pain. The difference between a normal painful event and trauma is that the painful event was so intense that it's kind of caused the brain, it's kind of left an imprint in the brain, kind of like a record that gets a scratch on it. So that imprint, what happens with that imprint is that even though your body is now healed and there's no physical pain, your brain is still sending your body messages that it's in pain. That's what happens with trauma. So even if people aren't in your life anymore, your brain is still in survival mode. It's sending you messages that there's danger. There's still danger. It hasn't learned how to relax yet.